Okay. Hello, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started with the webinar.
Okay. I think we're good to go.
Okay. Hello, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started with the webinar. On behalf of the HCA SEBB IT support team, we want to thank you for your time today. We know that coming to these can be challenging with your busy schedules, so thank you very much for coming today, and let's go ahead and get started. My name is Matthew Toney. I'm a Strategic Plan Project Manager with the Washington State Healthcare Authority. I will be your facilitator and timekeeper for this meeting. I will ensure that your questions get answered by our two experts on the call, John Bowden, which is SEBB Program Leadership, and Katrina Pitch, which is our technical expert on SEBB My Account. For preparation for open enrollment, this meeting is to review and discuss the interfaces available for reporting SEBB-eligible employees into SEBB My Account. And just some general housekeeping for this meeting. The lines are going to be muted, so any questions that you have during the duration of this webinar, go ahead and type them into chat. I will be reviewing the chat and making sure that those questions get answered. And because there's a very large population of people on this call, if we don't get to your question, fear not. We will be recording the questions in the chat, and we'll make sure to release FAQs associated with those questions and get them back to you so we can get your questions answered. We will also be recording this webinar. So post-webinar, we will be sending out the recording of this webinar and all materials associated with this webinar for all attendees and anyone who has expressed interest who couldn't be here today, which I've been tracking on my side. We've received a lot of great feedback from our beta testing participants, and we were able to incorporate some of those requested enhancements to SEBB My Account. So we'll be going over some of those and the functionality of SEBB My Account within this. When you leave this webinar, you will know the options for inputting eligible employees into SEBB My Account. You will also have the file layouts for the eligibility file and the dependent file, as well as know your responsibilities in the technical implementation of SEBB My Account leading up to go live. So this is the agenda for today. We're going to be going over a SEBB My Account timeline. We're going to be going over the authorized administrator forms that were sent out to your superintendents and to your benefits administrators. We're going to be going over eligibility determinations within SEBB My Account and options for adding eligible employees to SEBB My Account. We'll be reviewing the file specifications for the eligibility file and the dependent file. We'll also be hearing from WSIPC as to their support role in the technical implementation of SEBB My Account.
Real quick, there's a few people that have said it's a little hard to hear you. So
okay, I can project more.
Is that any better?
Helpful. Sounds like the room is big with it. It's echoing.
Are you on audio?
No, all of mine is. I'm not on audio right now.
Okay.
Sounds fine to me.
No, sounds okay.
It's not so much the volume, but an echo.
It says, can hear you fine volume-wise. Are you on speakerphone? Is anybody in the room on audio? No? Okay.
All of mine are shut, right?
Okay.
I'm not on audio. Is it still echoing now? No. Yes. No. So some are and some aren't.
Okay, well, we'll continue forward. Says a little but no problem. It just says if you could slow down a bit, that would be helpful.
Okay, I will slow down and project a little bit more so that you can hear me. Okay. So where we left off, we'll be hearing from WSIPC personnel as to their support role that they're going to be providing to their SEBB organizations. And then lastly, we're going to talk about a process for testing the eligibility files. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to John Bowden to start discussing the SEBB My Account timeline.
Good afternoon. Happy Friday. This is John Bowden. I am the manager of the School Employee Benefits section at the Healthcare Authority. And what I want to do today is provide some background, set some context for our conversation. And on the screen right now, what you see is a SEBB account timeline. Bear with me for a few minutes here. We're going to stay on this slide as I go through each of the bars and talk a little bit about them. Some more than others. Some are just up there to let you know how things fit in. We're not really going to discuss them today, but perhaps at the end, if we have some time, we could go back. So, first of all, I want to say that the focus of today's presentation is on the specifications for the eligibility file. Katrina will be doing that in a moment. And also want to just reiterate what Matthew said, that WSIPC is joining us today, and they play a very key role in making sure that the eligibility data you need to submit to us is available to you. And I believe all of you either did or should have received an email from them outlining some of the support that they're going to be providing. And later in our presentation, they're going to talk to you about the specific support. So right now, going through this timeline, I want to start out with up at the top. The first green bar, or the green bars you see, are the ones that we're really going to be talking about today. The blue ones, like I said, are things that we'll discuss lightly and come back to if you have questions later and we get through the eligibility file conversation. So the first green bar refers to the authorized administrative profile. I want to thank everybody who had their superintendents fill out the necessary form and get that back to us. For those of you that have not yet done this, we ask that you do this as soon as possible. This is going to be a key part of making sure that we have all of the eligible employees in SEBB My Account so they can make benefit selection. And we'll be talking about this considerably more during the course of the presentation. Next is the SEBB My Account eligibility file prep and testing, and Katrina will talk through this with us. But this is where you prepare a test file, and we're asking, and we'll repeat this, that that file not be real data. This enables us to make sure we can accept the real data when it's ready, but we don't have to worry about some of the security confidentiality issues if it's not real data. So we'll be able to do the test file through an email between now and August 15th. After that, we really need to start going toward the real data. Next one is the third green bar there, determine employee eligibility. And we are encouraging you to get started on this as soon as possible if you haven't already done so. And I'm going to have a slide in just a moment where I'll talk through a little more detail, but we do want to have you complete your eligibility files by September 3rd, making the determinations so that you can upload on September 3rd when SEBB My Account becomes available to you. So that's about 6 weeks from today. And once you've made those eligibility determinations, that you get it somehow recorded in the personnel files that you have to make sending the file in easier. And again, we'll talk about this more in a moment. The first blue file, we're not going to go into detail today, just wanted to show you when the benefit administrator 2-day trainings are going to take place. And I think a lot of you have already signed up for those trainings, so we're happy to see that. Information about SEBB My Account and how to do eligibility determinations and things will be presented to you in those trainings. So we may want to go back to that later. The next piece in there, the SEBB My Account eligibility testing part, we have a little window in there where we can do some real testing in terms of the actual files. Make sure that they are ready. Then we get to the going live with SEBB My Account. And from September 3rd to the 30th, you'll be able to upload. We strongly want to encourage you, though, if at all possible, to get the eligibility files uploaded by 5 p.m. on September 10th. This is going to ensure that your employees will be able to do enrollments in FSA and DCAP and supplemental life and AD&D benefits on October 1 when SEBB My Account is available to them for benefit selection. So you can upload eligibility data after September 10th. It could delay your employee's ability to enroll in those benefits, but I do know in conversations I've had with many of you that you won't know all of the eligible employees prior to September 10th. You'll have some new hires coming on, decisions to be made, so you'll be able to continue adding employees. We just like to, if possible, get the bulk of them in as early as possible. So our shared goal in all of this is to ensure that all the SEBB eligible employees are loaded prior to open enrollment on October 1st. The last two blue bars that you see there, one on the on-site benefit fairs, and when we go live with open enrollment from October 1st to November 15th. Couple of quick comments on that. One is, besides the on-site benefit fairs running from September 30th through the 7th, we're also going to have a virtual benefit fair available to employees online from October 1 through November 15th. So next slide. Just want to go back to the SEBB My Account Authorized Administrator. And as Matthew said, there was a request that went out like in early June for SEBB organization superintendents to complete the form appointing the account authorized administrator who can then designate others that would have access. And we have received those forms and authorizations for many of you. If you haven't done it and you have questions about it, you can see at the very bottom on this slide a URL. Please send in questions and we'd like to get that taken care of as quickly as possible. The importance of having the authorized administrators are so that we can have the eligibility files uploaded and that person can designate others within your school district, ESD charter school, that will need to be able to add employees and make various kinds of changes. So that's an important piece to have in place. We want you to complete the form, return it to HCA as soon as possible if you haven't done it. And some of those things look like they're repeated, so I'm not going to go into a lot you can read there, but just want to again reiterate that really those forms are past what we needed, so please hurry in getting those in if you haven't. And again, thanks to those who have. So next slide.
John, I think it's worth saying that on the SEBB My Account Authorized Administrator, we have triaged what is currently in-house, and we actually have a team, our outreach and training team will be reaching out to those organizations that have either not submitted a form or have submitted an incomplete form, and they will be walking you through that process. So be on the lookout for outreach from our outreach and training team in the coming weeks.
Very good, thank you. My last slide here is on eligibility determinations. So some of you started looking at your employee files back as early as beginning of July. I know that many of you have not looked so far because I've talked with some of you, but the earlier you can do it sets up for success. And one of the things I kind of want to talk about in terms of determining the eligibility is there's a threshold of anticipated to work 630 or more hours in a school year. You need to work that 630 to be eligible. And I've talked with some benefit administrators. One told me that his plan is he's looking at all employees and anybody who is 50% time or above, or that he knows works more than 3.5 hours per day and works pretty much every day, just automatically eligible. So not going to spend a lot of time looking at those employees that the 50% time or above are automatically eligible. And those who are less than 20% time, less than 0.2 FTE, are not likely to be eligible, so he's putting them in a no category. And then he says he will focus his time on the employees between the 0.2 and the 0.5. So whatever you can do to help speed that process up and not have to look at every employee would be advisable. But how you figure out to do it, that's up to you, but you do need to determine which employees you think will be SEBB eligible and which you do not think will be SEBB eligible. And again, just a reminder, about 6 weeks to do that determination, to hit the September 3rd through the 10th to get uploaded. So before turning it over to Katrina, are there any questions on anything that I've presented thus far?
John, we do have some questions coming in from Yesenia. Access to the materials. We will be recording this, and we will also be sending out the recording of this webinar and all materials associated with this webinar to the attendees. And for those who couldn't have made it to this webinar, we have recorded their contact information. We'll be sending that out as well to them. We do have some questions pertaining to training. We do have Amy Corrigan here in a support role for this webinar, who is leading the training efforts and outreach and training. So Amy, some of the questions coming in are where do we sign up for the trainings?
So there's actually a web page available that has a list of all the training dates and the locations, and that's where you would register. I can get that out to everybody if they need it, if that's a request.
Okay. And then there's another question about the material that would be covered in the 2-day trainings.
So we will be walking you through the eligibility resources, which will be a huge thing because there will be a full website for the benefits administrators with a lot of guidance on it to help you determine eligibility and processes and procedures. And then day 2 is SEBB My Account, so teaching you how to interact with the software where you enroll employees and where the employees will go to enroll themselves.
And Luke does have a question not only about the material covered in the 2-day trainings, but also wondering what FTEs he should be sending to that training. So I think we can probably take that conversation offline and make sure that they have contact information for you and your outreach and training team.
Okay.
Just quickly here, though, basically it's anybody who is going to play a role around administering the benefits, whether it's a payroll person, a benefits specialist. I would say that it's better to have more training than less. So.
Before moving on to the file specifications, are there any other questions that you could type in the chat? We do have a question from Frida. Will there be a specific direction for determining substitutes eligibility, both classified and certificated?
On the substitute eligibility piece, number one is you do need to think in terms of whether they're going to reach 630 hours or not. It's a little hard to tell in advance, so in that case what you need to do is do a 2-year look back. And if you have a substitute that over the past 2 years has been hitting that 630 mark, you should assume that or anticipate that they will reach that 630 again, unless something about their job has changed that would make you question about whether they would reach it in the coming years. So you do need to sort of think over the past 2 years and see if there's a pattern established, because that's what you'll be looking at. That 630 hours, though, that's based on 3.5 hours per day of a 180-day school year. So that's kind of a guideline as to whether a substitute would meet that threshold or not. But substitutes will be eligible if they meet it.
John, piggybacking off of that, Teresa asks, do they have to reach 630 as a sub for both of the 2 years?
We've given the 2-year look back as a guideline because once you have 2 years, it's pretty much established. And if they were to file like a grievance and appeal as to on their eligibility, that if the pattern was established and nothing had changed in terms of their job, they would probably, and I can't say definitely, but there's a good likelihood they would be deemed as being eligible for benefits. So the answer is like, well, if in the first year they didn't start till halfway through the year, but at half a year got them to 315 or more, then I would say, please think carefully about it. If the first year they worked for the whole year and they only got to 200, then you need to make the call that says that they did in year 2, we don't think they will in year 3, or we think SEBB is going to be more like year 2, and deem them to be eligible. But you can wait until they have achieved the 630 before they become eligible.
Terry had the question, if the substitute works at multiple districts, does the benefit amounts get split, or does it need to be 630 in a single?
So the board made a decision that you need to reach the 630 with one employer. So substitutes that work in multiple districts, they would have to reach 630 within at least one of the districts to be eligible. And they would be eligible within the district that they first reached the 630. So only one district. We don't stack the hours across districts.
I think this last question is a good segue before I start on my slides, which is, will we have access to the SEBB website during the 2-day training to use it hands-on? So my understanding, and Amy can speak to this a bit, is there would be hands-on training day 2, but day 1 is going to be.
So we are working to get some of the pages up on the SEBB website, the Benefits Administrator's website. So there will be some that are available that will get flushed out, obviously, to a lot more information, but you'll at least know where to go to start looking. Yes. And then the SEBB My Account, it will be hands-on.
Okay, I think that's, we'd have to ask for clarification, but yeah, if, for hands-on, yeah. I think it's the SEBB My Account. Okay.
So we should move on to the next section.
Okay, so this is Chatrina. I am the business analyst for SEBB My Account. The slide that we have up currently is discussing options for adding eligible employees to SEBB My Account. So the current 2 options that we have available are manual entry through the user interface, keying them in one by one. We have just a couple screenshots here of SEBB My Account. And then additionally, we have a bulk upload through the user interface, and I'll be covering what exactly comprises that bulk upload here in just a second. But just to iterate again, the eligible employees are the only employees that we would expect to see input into SEBB My Account.
So Katrina was having a conversation with the school district earlier this morning. They asked, can they do multiple bulk uploads? This district says they get like 200-300 new employees that they won't have in the original eligibility file.
Absolutely, that's a great question, John. The bulk upload is available on demand. So you can, if you want to add 100 people at a time or the entire SEBB eligible population, you can. If you have, and I know a lot of districts have that where they end up hiring additional people in September and October. So at any point in time, you can use the bulk upload to enter people in. It's just an opportunity to save a little time. So moving on to the SEBB My Account eligibility file specifications. So this is specific to being able to add multiple folks. It is an upload process, so you will create an extract from your system of record. And we have WSIPC here on the webinar to help discuss their support for you in that. We're going to go ahead and review the data elements that make up this extract file. We'll talk briefly about the error messages, but we're not going to go through the entire count of error messages, but we will have those posted if you would like. And also you should have received them with the eligibility file specifications as well. So I have an example here of what the eligibility file link looks like within SEBB My Account from the dashboard, and then the actual page in which you would upload your eligibility files. And then there's a brief example there of exactly what kind of error message you could get. So in this case, the error message is due to overlapping eligibility dates and social security number within your organization. So let's go ahead and take a look at those eligibility specifications. So this is the same document that was sent out on the 17th. The purpose of this document is, or the purpose of the eligibility file is to allow SEBB organizations or districts to send eligibility data to HCA in that bulk format. We expect only to see newly eligible employees with this file upload process. So we wouldn't expect for you to re-report previous employees or changes to existing employee data that you have already reported to us would need to be made within the SEBB My Account user interface. So going through here, the first section talks about the naming convention of the file. So we have eligibility. This is your OSPI district number, your 5-digit number, the year, month, and day that the file was produced. And in this case, it's a text file, but we also can receive a CSV file in a pipe delimited format. So we have an example here of exactly what a pipe looks like. We do not expect column headings, and then the data elements are not fixed width, so you don't have to pad with extra spaces or zeros. Again, here is another button, or a picture of the button on the dashboard to be able to access the screen for the eligibility file. And you would move through and select the file from your desktop, upload it. The file is comprised of Social Security number, last name, first name, middle name. The required fields are here on the right. So obviously Social Security number is required, last name, first name, middle name is optional. Suffix is optional. Work and home phone is optional. Residential address is important. That is required for address line 1, residential city, state, zip code, and county code. County code is especially important as we utilize this county code to determine what plans are available to your subscribers. Mailing address is optional. Birth date is required. Birth sex is required. This has been a field that we've received several questions on based on some districts collect more than just male or female for their subscribers. And at this point in time, HCA is able to accept just male or female. We have discussed different opportunities for additional values, but at this point in time, we're going to have just the 2. Residential country code is conditional, as well as mailing country code, only necessary if it's outside of the US. Employee hire date is required. Employee monthly salary is not required. This is a field that we initially anticipated collecting as a required field in order to be able to determine what some of the costs were of supplemental benefits. But we heard from districts and it said that that would be a difficult thing to maintain and isn't always readily available when an employee is first hired. So we went ahead and made that field optional. Anticipate 630 hours. In this field, and it is definitely required, it is a yes, indicates that they are SEBB eligible, anticipated at 630 hours or more for the year. No is locally eligible, which is an HCA approved collective bargaining agreement where the district has bargained to be able to provide benefits to folks at 180 to 629 hours. Eligibility date is required, and that would be, so eligibility for year 1 is determined on the 2019-2020 school year. So the eligibility dates we would anticipate are in basically the first day of school, perhaps for the district. So it would be when they're first eligible for this school year. Represented and non-represented indicator, if an employee is represented by a collective bargaining unit, represented effective date, if the represented field is reported as a yes. And that is it for the eligibility file. So generally it's kind of the typical demographic data for your employees / subscribers, and additional fields in regards to employment and benefit eligibility. I see we have a few questions.
Katrina, there are a lot of questions.
Oh, fantastic.
Okay, so let's just start right at the bottom here. Cynthia asks, what if an employee is SEBB eligible but is exempted because they're on Medicare? What flag do we use? Cynthia, I'm not sure, exempted for Medicare? If you could expand upon that a little bit in the chat, maybe we could better answer your questions. You can answer it. Go ahead.
So the employees will have the ability to waive their medical coverage if they are enrolled in Medicare. So that is their choice to do. They would still be enrolled in vision and dental.
So they should be in the eligibility file the same as all other
Yes.
employees, and then they waive the medical.
Yes. Okay. And they'll have to actively waive it.
Teresa asks, will there be a specification template emailed out, or do we have to create our own Excel file?
So when you say, I think you mean the eligibility specifications. So WSIPC can talk to their level of support for this, but otherwise, if a district wanted to create a file, it would just be a text file, tab delimited. And if you haven't received the specification document, please let us know. We'll be happy to send it back out.
Okay, and then we do have a question from Laura. Laura asks, what if there's only a PO box for an employee, or is the district responsible for contacting them for getting a physical address?
So I've heard, so for a year, what we would really love to have is, of course, the residential address. If the only residential address you have is a PO box, that is what we can accept. So just please send us what you have for the residential address, even if that does include just a PO box.
Chad is asking about, he's inquiring about a data sharing agreement between HCA and the district.
So in that case, with the guidance of our privacy officer, we have terms and conditions, basically terms of use when you first log in to SEBB My Account, that will help that covers that language for that would be included otherwise in a data sharing agreement.
Cindy is inquiring about districts that span multiple counties. What county code do they use to upload?
So the county code is specific to the employee's residential address. So it'd be based on where the employee lives. For districts that span counties, there are additional plans that are available in districts that span more than one county.
There may be. So it'll be based on what the district office county. So if there are additional plans between where the employee lives and that.
Yeah, I think we've identified 133 districts in which have cross-boundary counties. And so we've made an acknowledgement for that within SEBB My Account. So in that case, they'll have the plans available in the counties that they cover.
Yeah, that number is pretty much good. The number, there's some that cross county boundaries, and then within that number, though, are also some districts that border Idaho and Oregon. And we know you have employees, out-of-state employees, and so we've expanded some options for them as well.
I hope that helps answer your question, Chris. I see that you asked just that. Yep, okay.
Amy is inquiring who the audience of the file specifications were sent out to. Amy, that was sent out to basically our benefit administrator master contact list, which includes payroll personnel, benefits administrators, HR personnel. So if you weren't captured in that initial push to get these file specs out, then I can go ahead and take down your contact information and make sure that for future reference, you'll be getting what we are sending out. Nancy is inquiring about the lag time between the file spec being uploaded to SEBB My Account and when the employee will be able to enroll.
So we are accepting files starting September 3rd, and employees will have access beginning October 1st. So any employee that has been entered prior to October 1st will be able to log in and make their benefit elections. Perhaps if you load somebody, and I guess really the question is it real time? So it depends. So we say no further than a 24-hour delay, but that would be if everybody sent all of their eligible employees at once through the eligibility file upload process. Of course, it would take a little bit of time to churn through each and every one of those, but realistically, the turnaround time is quite quick. And so we just give ourselves that slight bit of cushion that says 24 hours, but if you go in and enter an employee, if you enter them directly through the interface, by hand keying them in, they will be available immediately. Otherwise, it would be just the amount of processing time it takes to go through that file. So it really depends on how large the file is.
Ginny has a question pertaining to setting up SEBB My Account, and I'm going to assume that Ginny is talking about the benefit administrator side of SEBB My Account. But she asks, how do you set up your SEBB My Account?
So the first step is to be named as a benefit administrator for your district by the superintendent. This operates very much so like a district data security manager for OSPI. This is the person that will be administering access throughout your district for additional roles within SEBB My Account. And then once you have either the administrator role or an edit role, you would be able to then start inputting eligible employees.
April is asking about what to do with employees who are not eligible. Are they inputting those employees into SEBB My Account?
No, we would not expect to see employees entered that are not eligible. And Amy, maybe you can answer what happens if you accidentally submit somebody that is ineligible or shouldn't have been submitted. Then would you just end their coverage? You would terminate them that same day?
Assuming they actually enrolled.
Well, if it's...
Because if you just upload them, they're just going to sit there. If the employee actually goes out and enrolls, that's a different story.
Well,
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
So meaning that you want to remove somebody from your eligible population so that they don't default into coverage, because that's the other piece. If you report anybody in this eligibility file, all of the employees that are reported through this file will default into coverage if they do not waive coverage or select their own coverage. So they would need to go in and terminate them. So that's why we would not expect to see non-eligible employees reported into SEBB My Account. If they're absolutely not eligible, please don't report them. And if you do report somebody who turns out to be ineligible, you would go through the steps through SEBB My Account to terminate that eligibility.
There's a lot more questions in chat for time. We're going to go ahead and move through the dependent file, but I am logging the questions. So we will catch back up with these questions on the back end at the very end in our Q&A session.
So dependent file specifications. This came, oops, close that. This came at the request of some school districts that said they happen to have dependent demographic information on behalf of their employee/subscriber population. And they wanted to make it a little bit easier on their employees to be able to report those dependents ahead of time so that the employees didn't have to key them in. So that is a little bit of a time saver in that respect. However, every dependent that gets entered into SEBB My Account through this file upload process and keyed in by employees will also need to be verified as eligible dependents. But here, so this is an opportunity for districts to send in employees' dependent demographic information through SEBB My Account in a bulk upload fashion. The naming convention is very similar, but instead of eligibility, we have dependent listed as the first part of that file. The expected format, again, is a pipe delimited format without column headings and no padded values or spaces needed as the data elements are not fixed width. And then you'll find that this, in fact, I should go back really quick because I want to show you here the dependent file specifications are located in the very same place that you would upload your eligibility files. So in that instance, you would just check this box here that says Manage Dependent Eligibility Uploads. You would select your dependent file, and then you would receive very much so the same type of error messages. So I'm going to go back to the specifications. So it's there under the eligibility file tab or screen. And then the record information. The dependent social security number in this particular file is not required. Social security numbers would eventually be required for each person reported within SEBB My Account. However, for this file, we absolutely do need the subscriber's social security number to be able to tie the two together. And subscribers / employees are always required to receive their social security number. Last name, first name is required of the dependent. Middle name and suffix is not. Birth sex, again, is required along with birth date. Residential address in this instance is not required. We will default to using the subscriber's residential physical address on behalf of the dependent unless there's something else reported here. And then some additional values are included in this file. We have dependent type. Are they a spouse, a partner, or a dependent child? We need the relationship of the dependent to the subscriber, either biological or adopted child, stepchild. If the value reported for dependent is that of a child. We need the spouse or dependent qualifying reason code. Are they disabled, an extended dependent? Leave it blank if they're not disabled or extended. If they're a married spouse or a domestic partner. And that really should say state registered domestic partner. And then if you report a marriage or a state registered domestic partner, then we will also need the partnership start date. And that pretty much sums up these data elements for the dependent file. Again, after processing the file, you would receive any error messages there on the screen. And a copy of those error messages was sent out with the invitation for this webinar. And we will make sure to get that out to anybody that wasn't able to receive it.
Yeah, there's quite a few comments in chat saying that the file specs were not received. For anyone who is saying that within chat, we are recording this chat, so we will make sure to get those file specifications out to you.
Amy, maybe you can help with one question. Tina asked, what about a foster child? How is a foster child reported?
So if it's a foster child through DSHS, they're not eligible dependents. You'd have to have a court order to make it an extended dependent in order to enroll that child.
Okay. Do you have additional questions?
Well, we have a lot of questions,
Okay.
35 questions to be exact.
All right.
I think we should probably move forward in the presentation. I'm collecting all of these, and
Okay.
then we will catch back up on them on the backside.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so we'll go back to the presentation and we will hand it over to WSIPC.
Good afternoon, this is Sean. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Excellent. Thank you, HCA, for inviting us to today's presentation, and thanks to all those that are online. I'll be curious what SEBB is doing for you. So this gives us an opportunity to share with you what's in store for our SEBB members. So go to the next slide. Essentially working on 4 software enhancements related to the SEBB program. First one is employee eligibility upload. The second is a payroll deduction import. The third is to deal with the flexible spending accounts and care reporting, and finally for the eligible for the supplemental life.
Sean, you're breaking up a little bit. Just
okay. Is that better?
yes.
Up to my face like this. Good thing we don't have the feed on right now. All right, so thank you. So when it comes to the employee eligibility upload, we're going to create an interface in both Skyward products, SMS and the cumulative product, for allowing you to select employees and query basically those that are eligible, select them for eligibility, and then generate a file out of your software systems, out of your Skyward systems, and upload those into SEBB My Account. So right now we're working on those interfaces, and we'll be doing some initial testing of those file loads. We've done some initial testing already with HCA. We'll be doing some more as those pieces are developed. Our goal is to have that in place here in the next few weeks, and then also have everyone working with your service centers, your ESD service centers, have you trained and have you provide you with documentation by the end of August. And then the interface will be available for you to use prime time in September when the window opens up. We are working on an employee selection interface, so when we have more information on that, we will provide that out to you. That's something that's critical at this point for folks to be able to start selecting their employees, so we're working on that as well. Next slide. All right, so the second development effort is to allow school districts to be able to pull data from SEBB My Account and import them into their SMS or cumulative databases to apply against employees' pay, basically create the deduction record. And so that'll simplify the process in running the payrolls related to this. And this is something we have targeted for December 2019. So more information to come on that effort, as well as the flexible spending account and dependent care assistance program. We're also developing a solution for school districts to be able to generate those files of information, that supplemental information, and send it or upload it into SEBB My Account. And it has the same timeline as the payroll deduction, focusing around the December time period. And then our final focus of effort is to create an interface with MetLife. So this is not necessarily with HCA, but with MetLife for those districts that are eligible to use the payroll deduction approach with communicating information about those deductions for supplemental life and accidental death and dismemberment to MetLife. So then that is on the same timeline as the other two for December. All right. This next slide just sort of encapsulates it in a graph to show the flow of data. So as the district or sub-organization, you'll interface through the Skyward software products to provide the eligibility files and the FSA deduction files to healthcare authorities through your MySEBB interfaces, that upload process. And then in return, you'll be able to download a payroll deduction file from SEBB My Account and import those into your payroll runs. And then as a separate piece is for the 4 districts that are eligible in 2020, they'll have the ability to interface with MetLife. The next slide, please. And so this just provides a picture, a graph to our timeline, our testing that's going on. Sorry. So anyway, this is our timeline, and you can see that, we have our milestones that we're going to hit with getting those eligibility trainings and documentation done by the end of August at the latest, so that you guys can go ahead and start using the interface to upload your, generate your files, your eligibility files, and upload those into SEBB My Account. And then we also have the 3 development efforts that we're targeting for November, with the training that ensues after that. All right, so that is what WSIPC has in store for our members. Any questions?
Sean, there is a question. How will the district identify in software what employees are eligible?
Well, right now, the design would be that they would basically select them with a checkbox. There'll be a mass selection option. There's individual selections. You know, there'll be, as John talked about, there's, you know, kind of a fuzzy logic to be able to decide some of that 630 hours for substitutes. So ultimately giving the power to the benefit administrator or the user that's in front of that screen to be able to select employees either in mass or individually. And then once that selection is done, you know, and the pertinent data is added into it, they could then move forward in the process and extract the file and then upload that into SEBB My Account.
So Sean, this is John, just because I've been asked this question. What you just said is there'll be like a checkbox where you can say, yes, this employee is eligible, or no, the employee is not. But WSIPC is not going to try to do any calculations on the school district's behalf as to whether the employee is or is not eligible. Is that correct?
Correct. I mean, we can provide, you know, the data on the screen and things like that for folks to be able to say, yeah, this person meets the criteria, but, you know, based on some of the, you know, ambiguity around the criteria, we'd rather give the power to the benefit administrators, the district administrators, to make that selection. Okay.
Is there a way that I could say, for everybody that's at least 0.5 FTE, I know they're going to be eligible, that I can do just a quick check mark without having to go through employee by employee?
Yeah, that'd be the mass selection piece. So if
okay.
you know, those folks that are definite, you could just click a button, mass select, and it would select them all. That's the foregoing design of that piece of it.
Excellent, thank you.
And I think maybe that might answer Cindy's question of, can we select by employee type? So maybe meaning like a full-time FTE or.
I know many districts, the overwhelming majority of teachers, for instance, are full-time or in the 90% time, and not many would fall below the 0.5. So if you just designated by certificated staff, stand a good chance that way of then only having to pick a few out that weren't eligible.
Yeah,
Sean, Laura does ask.
There'll be different data elements like employee type that will be available as a part of that selection process. So yes.
Sean, Laura does ask, will we be importing directly into DED/BEN area or into insurance tracking?
It'll be directly against the employee profile, the deduction and benefit area. We realize that not everyone uses the insurance tracking module, so you're going with the lowest common denominator. It'll go directly against the employee's pay.
Cheryl has a question about MetLife billing options. Right now she's saying that they bill directly for supplemental. Is that going to continue?
Well, from a WSIPC end, it depends on, you know, we're going to make the interface available, and then it's based on who's eligible through the MetLife process. So, I mean, that would be more of a question for HCA on which districts are eligible. My understanding from what I've received for cooperative members, that would be Kent, Evergreen, Bethel, and Lake Washington for 2020, but I would leave that to HCA to answer that.
Yeah, MetLife made it possible for districts that have 2,500 or more employees to be able to participate for year one in the payroll deduction piece. Otherwise, if the district does not meet that threshold or chose not to participate, then the employees would then be direct billed.
And we actually do have Mike and Nikki on the line now, who are procurement project managers, who can answer the question more directly. Nikki and Mike, if you want to answer the question pertaining to MetLife's billing options.
Mike, I did unmute you.
Hi, Katrina. Can you guys hear me okay?
I can now,
Yes,
sorry.
we can.
Okay, yeah, so I think you covered the piece about the direct billing with MetLife. So we've essentially got 3 billing methods available. So for SEBB organizations with 2,500 or more employees, they were given the option to sign up for payroll deduction. And SEBB organizations with 500 to 2,499 employees were given the option to sign up for list billing. For organizations that choose not to participate in payroll deduction or list billing, or for SEBB organizations that are not eligible for either of those options, they will go into direct billing. So hopefully that adds a little bit of clarity. But then just from a timeline perspective and for the payroll readiness activities, I just want to make one thing clear. There might be some timing discrepancies between what we see on this timeline summary and what we've previously conveyed via the MetLife, Navia, and the standard facilitated webinars. And what I would call out is that any information that's previously been disseminated in those webinars that still applies, those dates and those action plans are still applicable, and we'll need to circle back with WSIPC offline to make sure we are disseminating consistent information.
Sean, there's some questions around determining eligibility in software. Will users in the software be able to see an employee that has been identified as eligible? In other words, the determination has been done for that year. So I think if they're asking if you're making a determination in software for an employee's eligibility.
If we're making the determination, no, that would be the responsibility of the district to make the determination of eligibility. And then that is something they could see in the software, yes.
There's also a question from the browse screen provided during the selection. Will the hours worked be displayed? If the hours are displayed, is the system capturing hours worked?
That is our intention, is to have that available on the screen as well.
Want to ask Jill's question?
Yeah, we do have a question from Jill. Can you explain the difference between the test file due by the end of August and the actual eligibility file?
So I will go through some of that information in regards to different opportunities for testing eligibility files in about another 5 minutes, unless we get through all of our questions before then.
Denise has a question pertaining to the training dates in December, Amy. Are those set with the mind that the first payroll deductions are now supposed to be taken on the December payroll instead of the January as originally conveyed?
So our first, I think it might be in regards to this timeline here from WSIPC, because we have our first payroll file will be available in December for the majority of, for the payroll deductions for medical, dental, vision, well, I guess dental, vision, not specifically. But.
Well, if I remember, because this is truly an accounting question, but if I remember correctly after talking to accounting is then at that point the district has the option to pull the premiums for January in the December paycheck, or they can pull them in the January paycheck. So it's up to the district.
Right. I can, from a WSIPC standpoint, our goal is to have folks trained by December. So the train dates would be November timeframe. So those flags are just our finish line, if you will. So. But that's what those are too.
Okay.
There is a question around the eligibility file. Will the entire file fail if there are errors, or only records within the file?
It's a fantastic question. So no, the entire file will not err if there are errors, but if you see errors, that record did not load. So I think an example, I had Beth Smith on the file for a bad social security number, duplicate reported social security number. So that record will not load. So if any of the required fields don't meet the requirements, then you will see that error and that person will not be in SEBB My Account. That record will not load.
I think we might have time to tackle one last question, moving backwards a little bit. Kathy asks that they don't actually collect dependent data, and are they responsible for providing that data?
No, this was an opportunity for districts that had that data and wanted to provide it, but the dependent file is completely optional. We have heard from some districts that, yes, the same echoing, that they do not collect that, or not collect or maintain that kind of data. So
this is John again. I've actually only talked with maybe 2 or 3 districts across the state that do have any dependent data. So in the majority of cases, I would say it'd be something you'd have to create. And I have talked with a few districts that are talking about maybe getting a step ahead on that with an open enrollment that they might be having in like August for the final months of 2019. But we don't think that this is going to be a heavily used option.
There's a question from Jose about reporting spouses who both work in the district together.
So you cannot be dual enrolled in the SEBB program. However, there seems to make sense in some cases for a spouse for them to be covered under one person. I think that typically applies to out-of-pocket annual maximums and that type of thing where it makes sense. So in that case, one spouse would waive their medical, and then the spouse that is joining so if spouse A, yeah, Amy can report this better.
So
this better.
If you have 2 employees and they are married or partners, they can choose who will carry the medical. So they can both enroll on one account on medical. They do have to both be reported as eligible, because even if that one person waives their medical, they still have to have their own vision and dental. And they have their own option to, of course, to choose life insurance and their LTD as well.
Nancy has a follow-on question. Does the no dual enrollment apply to both dental and vision as well?
Yes, it does. All our benefits, you cannot be dual enrolled.
So I have recorded the questions that we haven't gotten to. We do have a Q&A session set aside at the end of this, so we're going to go ahead and move on with the presentation, and we will catch up to the questions that we haven't gotten to in the Q&A session.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is what I was alluding to previously in talking about some additional opportunities for eligibility file prep and testing. So we have 2 opportunities at this time. The first opportunity is current until August 15th, and that is to send test eligibility files with mock data to our HCA SEBB IT support inbox. Because we don't have the user interface available for you to test directly at this point in time, this was a mitigation to make sure that we would be able to help you with testing format and maybe being able to look at and sample errors. But realistically, you would send that mock data eligibility file to the IT support inbox. Our HCA staff would upload that test eligibility file and report back to you any errors that they have received. That solved one piece of the pie. And then we really wanted to look at what would it look like if we made it possible for you to be able to extract from your system actually live data, and how could we manage that? So for the time frame of August 16th through August 30th, you can send a test eligibility file with live data through Fuse. Many of you are already set up for Fuse. If you are not set up for Fuse, this is a secure communication channel that will be your primary source of communication through our outreach and training department. If you would like to send a live data file, August 16th through the 30th, you would send it through Fuse, and then we would follow very much the same process. HCA IT will upload that test file with the live data into SEBB My Account, and then be able to report back to you any errors and feedback for that file. Just keep in mind, even if you do send us live data for us to be able to test with through Fuse, you will still need to be able to upload that data into SEBB My Account starting September 3rd as the true SEBB-eligible population for your district. So we do have those two options available, one for mock data and then the second for our live data, but the two different venues. It's definitely important to avoid sending any of that sensitive live data through our HCA SEBB IT support inbox, and to definitely utilize Fuse for that. Do we have questions?
We do. So we do have questions about signing up for Fuse.
So that can be done from the SEBB Benefits Administrator website. We have a link out there to allow you to sign up. I think I said earlier that we can get that link out to everybody also for the registration of the training.
There are quite a few questions pertaining to dual enrollment. One from Vicky. Is dual enrollment only for same district, or can they be double covered if they work at different districts?
It doesn't matter which district. Even if they're at different districts, you cannot double cover under SEBB benefits. And that includes dependents. So both parents cannot put their dependents on their accounts and cover them.
A question from Paula. What if one employee works for us and the other one works for a different SEBB organization? Can one waive and sign up under the other spouse?
No, there is no dual coverage.
So I think the question was, yes, you can waive.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Waive, yes.
I'm sorry. I did misunderstand. Yes, you can waive and enroll. But the vision and the dental are going to be with the person who's waived their district.
And there are reasons to do it both ways. So there's financial considerations here in terms of the deductibles as well as the cost of the premiums. Like if you have children, you might want to have children under one employee and then the others sign up by themselves. That saves you a little on premium, or you might want to have them both on the same plan because you're looking at the deductibles. So there are considerations, but one can waive.
And Sarah, thank you. She just posted the BA website URL in the chat window. So
perfect. Thank you.
You'll be able to go sign up for training there and also
register for Fuse. And also please register for our Gov delivery, because that going forward, that's the way I'm going to communicate with you.
John, there are policy questions from Valerie pertaining to the spousal surcharge. Will spouses who are both employed in the same district be charged the spousal surcharge if one waives and is covered as a dependent under their spouse?
No. In the case of SEBB, there won't be a surcharge for one of them having waived. That's really only if there is an outside employer where you're shifting the real burden onto SEBB by waiving. But under SEBB, they're both eligible, and so no penalty for waiving there.
Timmy asked a question about children. Can they be enrolled under both parents? Another dual.
No, the children cannot be enrolled under both parents.
There's a question from Kimberly. Will rehire retirees who are on PEB insurance have to sign up for SEBB?
If they meet that 630-hour threshold, they will be eligible for SEBB, and they can decline the SEBB, but I think what they'll find is that the SEBB benefit is probably cheaper for them than under PEB as a retiree.
To Trina, there are questions pertaining to mock or live eligibility files. Dieta has a question. Do we only need to do one mock or live?
No, you could do either or. So we just want to make these different options available. If you're at that point where you want to be able to send that, we can take that mock data now. The only difference is we will not be in a position to take that live data until the 16th of August, because that's when our environment will be at the point where we can safely and securely hold that sensitive data.
Amanda has a question about being a very small district. Do they need to send a test file? If the district is very small, is there a way to manually add those who are eligible?
So yes, there is an opportunity to just manually key individuals in. There's no requirement to use the eligibility file upload. We just offered that as an opportunity for districts that are able to create that extract and want to be able to do that bulk addition for a time-saving piece.
I was talking with a school district just a day or two ago that's very, very small. And the person there told me that it was going to be more of an effort for them to create a file to upload than it would be to just manually enter the few employees that they have. So that's one thing to consider in terms of updates. You might want to do a bulk upload for your first one, but then make changes by hand manually.
Sean, pertaining to testing with mock data, would you like to speak in terms of WSIPC's support role as to what you've been producing and providing to the HCA in terms of mock data eligibility files?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we have already done some previous testing with the file, and so that has been vetted for our members of SEBB members, and we'll be continuing to do some load testing as the interfaces are developed further. So if those districts that are served by WSIPC and their ESD service centers, this testing is being done on your behalf, at least the mock data piece of it. So it's not as important for those folks to have to worry about that piece of it.
John, there's a policy question about if a spouse is in PEB and the other spouse is in SEBB, is there a penalty if the SEBB person waives?
I'm not sure the answer on that one because PEB also has the surcharge if you have access and you waive. So to me, right off, the logic would say, no, there wouldn't be, but there might be. So we'll get back to all of you on that one. I just want to be certain. I don't want to give you a bad answer.
So do you want to go ahead and, I say let's go ahead and finish this out, and then we can revisit. I've got all the questions logged. We can go ahead and revisit those in the Q&A session.
Okay. So just to wrap up the file testing, so we are continuing to do our external facing test environment is currently being utilized for our performance testing. We want to make sure that we don't have any issues with a large number of people on day one that are able to log in and maneuver through the application successfully. So we appreciate your patience and look forward to receiving any questions that you have on that. And as far as the time frame during this testing period, please do allow for 48 hours of success fail response from the HCA SEBB IT support as we try to go ahead and test those files for districts that have been sending them in and then report back. Oops. Okay. So in summary, for my piece, we looked at the options for adding eligible employees into SEBB My Account. We took a look at the eligibility and dependent file specifications, discussed the preparation and testing of eligibility data, and want to thank WSIPC for detailing their support role.
So in terms of next steps, after this webinar, we will be providing a link to this recorded webinar and all materials associated with this webinar. We also will be, we also have recorded the chat, so any questions that we don't get around to answering during this webinar, we will be following up with you to make sure that your questions get answered. We will be hosting a follow-up technical implementation webinar in early August. We hope to include the entirety of the state, WSIPC affiliated and non-affiliated. So look for that invitation coming soon. In terms of SEBB organization responsibilities, we did discuss the authorized administrator forms, which we need in-house as soon as possible. Our outreach and training team will be reaching out to you if you have not responded to the authorized administrator form sent out, or if your form is incomplete. So be on the lookout for our outreach and training team to be engaging with you in that. From July to August 15th, SEBB organizations can send test eligibility files to our HCA SEBB IT support. We'll be monitoring that inbox for any submissions there. And then July 1st to August 30th, we are asking that SEBB organizations begin to make eligibility determinations within that time frame. That will set you up for success in terms of being able to meet the 9.3 to 9.10 eligibility upload to SEBB My Account. And then lastly, we have the window that we're looking to receive those eligibility files within 9.3 to 9.10. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and open this up to just sort of a general Q&A session. I have a lot of logged questions that we're going to go back through and answer. So let's go ahead and get that started now. Deanna asked a question, is there a template for the info needed? Deanna, I don't know I'm not sure what template you're looking for in the info that you're requesting on. If you could type in the chat and help me understand, that would be.
That sounds like the eligibility file to me.
Deanna is saying, is there a template for the mock file?
Yep, that is the eligibility file specifications that we sent previously. And also the link that was sent out for that benefit administrator website, the URL will also contains the specifications. So you can find that as
So I've been asked a question like, is HCA going to prepare an Excel spreadsheet where they fill in for the employees? And I'm not sure if that's what the question is. And then I think maybe some help from our WSIPC friends in terms of what they're producing, what it'll look like.
Deanna says yes, that is the question.
So no, we are not providing an Excel spreadsheet or that type of a template. What we do provide is the instructions on creating a pipe delimited text file or pipe delimited CSV file. One of the questions was, when will benefit administrators have access to SEBB My Account? SEBB My Account will go live for benefit administrators on September 3rd.
There's a question from Jose. Is there a field to indicate waive status?
So we do not receive within this eligibility file benefit elections for employees. This is solely just to report to HCA who the eligible population is. The employees will need to log into SEBB My Account or submit a paper form with their benefit elections. So on that form or within SEBB My Account, they can elect to waive coverage if they'd like.
April asks, can employees have doctors outside of their county of residence?
So
That might be a PPO
yes,
question.
it gets a little complicated on the plans that are going to be available, but the basis is really plans will be made available to you in the county in which you live. And many of the plans are preferred provider organizations, PPOs. So the provider network can extend into other counties. And so they would be able to access, potentially access providers in counties besides those in which they live in. So I believe the answer is yes, you would be able to. You would be cautious maybe if you selected an HMO where you need to go to that facility because you may then end up as the employee with out-of-network charges or something. So for the most part, the answer is yes. You can get to other providers outside of the county in which you live.
Katrina,
So there are a lot of.
What was that?
This is Sean. I just want to make it clear that for WSIPC districts, they do not have to do the mock testing. WSIPC is taking care of that for them. As there's a lot of questions in the chat about, mock testing and file specs and things like that. So just want to make it clear that WSIPC has that piece under control for districts.
Awesome, thank you.
And Sean, just one other quick point on the question in terms of the template. I'm a very small district. I don't have a lot of IT knowledge, staff that can help. I don't know how to create a pipe delimited file. Is that something you're going to be handling for me, or do I need to quick learn?
We're going to handle that because they'll push a button and it'll create the file, and you just find the file and upload it into SEBB My Account. So there's no manual configuration of the file that's needed. SIPC's handling all of that configuration and formatting and testing. So that's all being done in-house. They just go to a screen, select their employees, push a button, it creates a file, they just upload the file. They don't even have to open it up.
I like that. Thank you.
So a question from Valerie for Sean. County is not populated field in our district. Is there a way to mass update this area?
Yeah, that's something we're working on as far as what that interface looks like, but we're well aware that the county is a critical piece of the eligibility file. So we'll provide some more instructions on that when the interface is in more defined shape. And again, this will be done through your ESD service centers, district service centers.
One of the questions that was asked was, are we not going to be able to have access to SEBB My Account before September 3rd, with the concern that we have to learn how to use SEBB My Account and upload files starting the 3rd. And we have this wonderful outreach and training team that will be doing in-person trainings, 2-day trainings starting in the month of August. So we highly encourage you to attend those trainings where you will get trained in all things SEBB, including SEBB My Account, and you will be able to access that training environment then. We are also providing a beautiful user guide and some videos that are step-by-step instructions, both for benefit administrators and for subscribers. And then additionally, for subscribers, we have a great tool called Ask Alex, or Alex, I guess, speaking to it wrong. And it is a benefit, not a comparison tool, but
it's a benefit selection tool.
Benefit selection tool.
Yep.
So in a nice, friendly way, it takes folks through scenario questions, asking how many dependents do they have, how often do they go to the doctor, those types of things to help them narrow down what might be a good plan for them.
There are quite a few questions pertaining to county, and I think that Laura's really just addresses most of them. Laura is seeking confirmation. When entering the county code based on the district's address, do they use the employee's home address or the district address?
Sorry?
Home address.
Home address. It's either the district address or the home address. It's the home address.
It's a home address. The county of the home address.
Caitlin has a question about P.O. Box. What if there's data on both a P.O. Box and a mailing address? Which one should they use?
For their...
If the question is a residential address versus a P.O. Box, residential would be preferable because the plan options that the employee will have is based on their residential address. And the P.O. Box doesn't necessarily tell us where they live to help in that selection. If that's the only address available, please send that address in because there are other things that we want the employee to be able to receive. So we will take P.O. over nothing, but residential is preferred.
That is the question, John.
Yeah, and the eligibility file specs do take both of those. So if you have both, send them. If you only have one, then we'll take that as the residential.
John, there's a policy question about current PEB employees. Do they need to go through DV, dependent verification?
So we are working to actually move the current PEB school district employees and to move their dependents over into SEBB My Account. So when an employee goes in and claims their account, their dependents will actually be there. And we are working so that those particular dependents do not have to resubmit dependent verification. But if the employee adds an additional dependent, they would have to have that dependent verified. But if they're currently verified in our insurance system for PEB, they would not have to be re-verified in SEBB.
Tammy has a question. Where do we get more information about having SEBB benefit fair on site?
Is this, if the district would like to do their own benefit fair? Because we'll have information, I think it may have already been posted. I'm looking at Amy.
Yeah, and I'm not sure whether it has or not, to be honest with you.
Okay, I just saw a graphic on it that listed the benefit fairs that HCA will be sponsoring. Mm-hmm. So I know it's either out there or will be coming soon. But information about that would be helpful for you to offer your own if you wanted to do that. I know that's not available yet, but you can offer your own benefit fairs, and we'll have some guidance saying that if you invite one medical carrier, you have to invite them all. If you invite one dental, you have to invite them all.
Katrina Luke has a question. Will we be able to export employees' elections at will for upload to our payroll system and for deduction audits?
Yes, we do have a report of benefit elections by employees.
Sean, Julie has a question directed towards WSIPC. Julie is saying, I'm assuming WSIPC will reach out to districts if there are any errors or exceptions during testing, and I actually think that's not WSIPC. I believe that is, if they're testing, that would be with us. So will we be notifying them of errors during testing if they're testing directly with us?
If we receive a file, we will respond back directly to the sender of that file. So I hope that helps answer your question. And I think that's building upon what Sean was saying in terms of testing an eligibility file. And Sean, would you like to respond to Julie in terms of whether or not you would be notifying individual districts if errors were received in your testing with HCA?
Yes, thank you. Our testing is with the mock data, the fictitious data. So during that period of testing that portion, it won't be with any specific school district's data. And then there's that time period, August 16th to August 30th, I forgot. But the live testing can occur. And that, again, I'm not sure that's really necessary because WSIPC is doing all of the testing of the loading and things like that. So I'm maybe need to talk more with HCA about the benefit for districts to do that live testing, given that WSIPC is developing a uniformed interface for all districts.
John, there's a question from Robin. When will plan options by county be available for employees to view?
So at yesterday's board meeting, there was a preview that the board looked at about what plan options would be available by the county in which the employees live, and then some additional plan options for some employees. This gets back to if the district crosses county lines or the employee is out of state, lives out of state. So that was presented at yesterday's board meeting. There's a board meeting coming up on July 25th where the board will pass resolutions or act on resolutions that will finally solidify what those offerings are going to be. And we're hoping to have that information out as quick as we can turn it around. Those board materials are public, so you can go to our website and look at the board materials and find what they are seeing. So you can get a preview based on yesterday's presentation, and then you can look again on the 25th to see what the final ones are. And then we'll get that up and make sure it's on our website, not just the board's pieces. And we'll get that information out within the month of August. So I would say within less than 2 weeks probably, you should have all the answers. And included in that information is not just the geographical coverage, there'll also be information about what the plan costs will be, what the employee's contribution for the plans will be. So all of that is coming very, very soon.
Katrina, Alice has a question. After they upload the September 3rd file, can you only send new employees in the next file, or can all employees be sent again?
Yes, we would only expect new employees, the delta between what you sent previously and what the people that you're trying to add. So we would just want to see those new employees. If you send them all again, all of the previous employees that loaded will just show up as an error, as already loaded into the system.
John, we have a policy question about an employee who resides in Arizona and how the district should handle eligibility for this employee who works remotely from Arizona.
So we've looked at employees that live out of state, work remotely. We've actually been a little surprised at how far some of them live from the state of Washington. So Arizona is kind of a close one. But they'll be eligible. For them, the only real option is going to be the Uniform Medical Plan in all probability. But the Uniform Medical Plan will cover you anywhere in the state of Washington, outside of the state of Washington in the U.S., and even if you're working from outside of the country, you can have coverage. So for that employee, if they are eligible, it's still the same 630-hour threshold, but they will have options available to them.
John, another policy question from Janet. If a teacher works at 2 different schools 50% time, does one district show the employee as ineligible and the other district shows them as eligible? Basically, who owns that eligibility?
So assuming, because the sound of the question was that the schools were in 2 different districts. So they're an employee in 2 different districts working 50% time in each. They would be eligible in each. I would strongly suggest that the districts get together and figure out some fashion of handling that employee's benefit cost, because they are only going to be eligible within one district. So the district should determine how they want to cover the cost of the employee.
John, when they're reviewing hours worked and determining eligibility from the previous 2 years, is that a school year or January to December calendar?
All benefit eligibility years are school years. So in both cases, you start on September 1 and go through August 31st. And for the coming year, if you're trying to keep track of hours, start with September 1. When you're doing a look back, go back to September 1 of each of the 2 previous years.
Paul asked a question about dependents. If an employee has dependents that are out of state, perhaps at college, would the uniform policy also be the only one that would cover those dependents that are out of state?
In that case, I think you could probably, if you're living within this state, you would have the options available in your district, and there would be provisions for out-of-state dependents.
Your dependents always have just the same insurance that you've selected for yourself.
Correct.
Yes.
So,
And all the plans offer emergent care when you're out of network like that. So if they wanted to remain in a plan that was only available in Washington while their child was out of state, the emergencies would be covered, but regular doctor visits would not.
There's a question about where to find the information on the UMP Achieve plans in terms of their network capacity. Where is that information going to be posted?
We're going to be getting some information out there, plus the carriers are going to be providing information about their provider networks that I believe will be available through our, I think it's going to be part of our virtual benefit fair.
It will be part of the virtual benefit fair. It will also be posted out on the SEBB website that will be for employees as well as benefits administrators, where the outreach and training one is strictly benefits administrators. We will also have a SEBB website that employees can go to for that type of information.
So this is adding a little bit more to the question, but where we have an open enrollment of 6 weeks rather than 4 weeks for the initial one, because we know with the amount of change going on, carriers and plans that many employees have right now are not part of the options that are going to be available because either the carrier decided not to participate for some reason. We do know that there's a lot of overlap in provider networks, and we think that most all employees will be able to find their provider even in a new network. But we did want to provide enough time to go in and do the research on the carrier provider networks so that you could find them. So with that in mind, I'm adding the extra time and knowing that people will need to do it, we're going to try to make it as easy as possible for them to figure out where their providers are.
There's a question about spousal coverage and it being secondary coverage. If a spouse is enrolled in their coverage at an employer, can they also enroll in SEBB as secondary coverage?
So as an example here, let's say that one employee works for a school district that has a Boeing site near them, and they have a spouse who works for Boeing. If the spouse working for Boeing waives coverage, there's that surcharge. But if the spouse takes the Boeing and the spouse can be on the SEBB employee's coverage and there's no charge, and the SEBB employee can be covered under Boeing, what we're trying to eliminate is the waiving on one side or the other. But you can be dual enrolled, one in a SEBB employer and one in a non-SEBB employer. That dual enrollment is acceptable.
Janet has a follow-on question to her 50% to district question. We have determined that one district will cover the cost for the insurance and the other district will reimburse the district covering those costs. But does the district who is not paying the cost show the employee is not eligible, I'm assuming within SEBB My Account?
So the employee can only be eligible in SEBB My Account under one district. So the rules read that the employee has the choice of which school they're going to carry their benefits at. Whatever the SEBB administrators determine behind the scenes for money going back and forth is up to them.
So I think the question here, though, is that employee, will both districts have to pay for that employee because the employee is eligible in both districts, even if they work out some sort of funding between them? And I will need to get back to you on that because, again, this is one of the areas where logic would suggest to me that you've worked out an arrangement and both of you shouldn't have to pay for the employee. You shouldn't have to pay twice type of thing, but I'm not sure how the rules are written. So we'll get back to you on that one. Sorry, we don't have an answer right now.
There's a question from Nancy questioning whether or not employees will be able to look up provider information before 10/1, or is that the time frame in which they'll be able to look up provider information?
I'm not sure what the timeline is for the SEBB website to be updated, but typically after the final vote of the board and everything is final is when the website starts to get updated with what's happening. It's a communications question.
Yeah, we'll see about getting up provider network information from the carriers as quick as we can get it. They're already working on it, so that would be a thing we'd like to have up a little earlier if we can.
I believe that we have made it through most of the backlog of questions. If there has been a question that I have missed in terms of tracking, please go ahead and submit it now. We still have about 20 minutes left in the webinar, so I want to make sure that we get to your questions. Doesn't seem like any are coming in. Oh, we have a new one. Terry asks, what What if your spouse has no medical coverage available? Will there still be a spousal surcharge?
No, there's not a spousal surcharge if they don't have any available to them. It's only if they have coverage available that meets a certain level. So like even if they have catastrophic available to them, it probably does not meet the required level. So there would not be a surcharge. So if there's nothing available, no surcharge, or if it doesn't meet a certain level I'm trying to think of something better than quality of the care coverage that they have, no surcharge.
Cindy, pertaining to your question about the mailing address, residential address, and the communication materials coming out, we can go ahead and take that offline. There's quite a bit of background on how that data was collected by HCA and how we're manipulating that data to address some of your concerns with it. So I'm going to go ahead and take that question offline and meet with you directly to talk about some of the things that we're doing in-house to clean and scrub some of that data that we have that we're using to send out those communication materials.
Alice asked, can an employee change the county when enrolling in SEBB? So no, we actually started out SEBB My Account with the ability for subscribers or employees to be able to update their address information. And we heard from districts that that was not the current practice, that districts are the owners of that information. And there was some concern about having different addresses and things being out of sync. So we went ahead and made an adjustment to our system to allow for districts only to update address information. So in order for them to do that, they will contact you and you would enter SEBB My Account and update that information for them there.
And the concern was that the employee would think that they had changed it everywhere by changing it in SEBB My Account, and that there are other things that you need to know that information for. So they'll make the change with you, not on their own.
Katrina, we do have a question on eligibility date. Our new hires currently are eligible on 10/1 with SEBB rules. They would be eligible as of 9/3. Which date are we supposed to use for this first year for our new hires?
The first day that they work in the district. And Amy, would you like to speak to this?
Can you repeat the question because I wasn't really clear on it?
Ella, we were asked to put eligible date on the upload file. Our new hires currently are eligible on 10/1, but with SEBB rules, they would be eligible as of 9/3. Which date are we supposed to use?
They can use the current one, 10/1 this year. That's fine. Going forward next year, when they have new employees, they would have to use the date of hire or the first day of school, if that's the date they were hired.
There is that just one little exception in September where if they are on board on or before the first day of the school year, they're eligible in September. Anything after the first day of school, their eligibility starts October 1. And for every other month, it's the first of the month after they come on board.
Yeah, so that would pose a problem if you report employees as eligible on 1/1/2020. They actually wouldn't have coverage effective until 2/1/2020. So we want to make sure to capture their eligibility date prior to that 1/1/2020 if that's the case. And so I think that's why Amy's saying for year one, it's not so significant of a difference between saying 10/1 or 9/3. But, and to John's point, that it would certainly make a difference for year two.
Yes.
Carla has a question. When is the first deduction for SEBB coverage, December or January?
So you'll receive the first invoice for SEBB benefits through SEBB My Account on December 16th. And this will be for the benefits for the month of January 2020. You'll make the first payment by or before February 5th of 2020. So the first SEBB payment is due by February 5th, 2020.
Katrina, Laura has a question. what will the represented effective date on the eligibility file be used for?
So the represented information is used for reporting purposes. John, can you talk to that?
Yeah, we've had some interest expressed by the legislature in knowing about represented versus non-represented employees. And so that date is just is whatever information you have, the best you have as to whether that the date upon which the employee became represented by one of the unions.
John, I don't know if you answered this question, but Diane has a question. She's seeking clarification about a statement. Districts have a choice about whether they are deducting premiums from the December check or the January check.
And that's true. So like I said, you'll get the invoice December 16th, you pay by February 5th, and whether you deduct from the December paycheck or you deduct from the January paycheck is entirely up to you. So we're not going to tell you when you need to make deductions. We're just going to tell you when the invoice is available and when payment should be made. Happy with anybody who wants to get into more detail about what some of the ramifications are or whatever, send me an email or give me a call. But the end of December, end of January, totally up to you.
Robin has a question. Will the bill on the December 16th come secure electronically or through mail?
It'll actually be made available through SEBB My Account. So on the 16th of December, you can log in and either view it there on screen or download that report. And it sounds like WSIPC is making it possible to ingest that billing file for payroll deductions.
There's a policy question around the interaction of Apple Health and SEBB. If an employee has Apple Health for their children, can they have them on SEBB as well?
No. So one of the things is if you are offered benefits through SEBB, that means that you are not eligible for Apple Health, but you can receive assistance from Apple Health to pay your share of the SEBB medical premiums.
We have a question from Terry. We have employees living in Milton, Freewater, Oregon, but only one in Milton, Freewater. The majority of us go to the doctors in Walla Walla, Washington, right outside the Washington-Oregon border. So if the employee wishes, can they use the Washington County code?
So what they'll have is they can either pick based on living in Oregon, or in all likelihood, and I haven't had a chance to review all of the permutations about added benefit or coverage options for the district, but there's a good chance that a Walla Walla employee will have additional options that are in closer to the district headquarters or school where they work. So I'm not sure I've answered it, but they would be able to access through the choice of the plan that they make or through an additional option.
Dee Manzano, I don't know, first working day of the month effective date, will there be a chart available for SEBB about this like PEB currently has? I'm not sure what that's in reference to. So
that's guidance that we have out there.
Okay.
Yes, we will create a chart for you.
Oh, we already did, okay. Laura has a question about payment, if it's due on 2/5/220 being used to pay for January coverage or February coverage?
For January coverage. So just a quick additional piece here. The January invoice, like I said before, it comes December 16th or is available through SEBB My Account to you on September 16th. You pay it by February 5th. That's January benefits. Now, January 16th, you'll have another invoice that you will have through SEBB My Account that'll contain, here's what you need to pay for the month of January, and here's what you need to pay for the month of February. So the January invoice is going to show that you haven't yet paid for January and you do need to pay for February. So Then when you get your February invoice, it'll say, thank you, you paid for January, you haven't paid for February, and here's what you owe for March. So you will kind of see 3 months worth of, and potentially more, depending on how you've made your payments. But I've added a little too much now. What you get in December is for January.
Sean, there's a question for Skyward. Chris asks, will we put one deduction code per employee that will encompass all of their plan choice deductions? Or will we continue to have separate deduction codes for medical, dental, vision, life insurance, etc.?
Yeah, that's a great question. And as we evolve our development of the payroll deduction import, we'll be able to provide more information on that piece. So look for more information.
And also, the SEBB program will be providing kind of a, what would you call it, a breakdown of the employer paid contribution, kind of the same thing that we offer for PEB, even though it's a, do you know what I'm referring to, Amy, on regards to the PEB breakdown of the rate that we give to districts so that they can break out exactly how much they're paying for dental, vision?
Oh, yes, yes, we can provide that.
Yeah, so we will be providing that. That should be available after our that SEBB board meeting on the 25th of July.
John, there's a Cheryl is revisiting dependent. If a dependent is in college and on state medical, does the parent have to add them to SEBB?
Again, yes, if the state medical, you're talking about the Medicaid Apple Health program, and they are under the age of 26 and they don't have a disability dependency over the age of 26. If they are Medicaid eligible and the parent is SEBB eligible, then let me put it this way. They can be included up to the age of 26. They do not have to be included if they are of legal adulthood on their own. So you don't have to cover all of your children up to age 26, but you can cover them up to age 26. But if they're on your coverage, they are not eligible for Medicaid. But again, there is assistance that can be provided to pay the premium.
We have some longer questions from Sherry. If the substitute works 630 for the prior 2 years and will likely reach the 630 hours at some point in the 2019-2020 school year, do we need to offer benefits in September, or can we wait to offer benefits until they reach 630? So
they become eligible January 1. My quick answer would be if they've reached 630 in 2 years prior and you anticipate it again, they would be eligible. But for the very first year, that eligibility starts for SEBB January 1. For subsequent years, you would have to continue their coverage without a break.
There are more questions about district and county lines. April states, so our district is one district in which we have a county where we have employees live in and another county. So our district has to offer plans for the other county to that employee who does not live in the district's county. The other county has more options. Only that employee will be able to receive those plan choices. Will our districts receive all plan choices for all counties that we have employees that live in them?
That's a very complicated question, but it's a complicated kind of issue. So one of the things with the SEBB My Account is all of the logic is going to be fed in. And this is one of the reasons that knowing the employee's residence, including the county in which they live in, is important, because What'll be generated on the screen for the employee is to see what options they have available to them. And that lessens the complication for you. But it's not like an employee in your district is going to necessarily be eligible for all of the options within every county that is part of your school district. So it's first of all based on where the employee lives, and then there are some additional that come in based on the district. So again, from yesterday's SEBB board meeting, there is some information and some very complex tables in the board book materials. So
I think it's worth clarifying that because we love having WSIPC on the call. I do think it's worth clarifying, though, that with HCA and WSIPC collaborating together to this, that districts are in fact responsible for making their own eligibility determinations. So WSIPC will be providing their update to their system, but it's the district themselves that must make that eligibility determination. And also, they must make that eligibility determination within their system, and the district itself is in fact responsible for reporting that through SEBB My Account to HCA. So that just a clarifying point.
Can I also add that I do have an email that will get sent out that does explain the eligibility to help them determine that.
Yep.
Mhm.
So after this webinar, I will pull the names together of everybody and send that out to them.
And it's officially 3 o'clock right now. I saw a couple more questions float in. We will be capturing those questions. So we have been recording this webinar. So thank you very much for your attendance on behalf of the HCA IT support team. We'll be sending out a recording of this webinar. If you know colleagues that weren't able to make this webinar, please forward this recording and these materials to them. We want as many people in the know as possible. And thank you very much and have a wonderful weekend.